So today we are going to do a coaster review of the 1999 original Intamin Mega Coaster or Hyper Coaster. So this was the first time Intamin built a coaster that was at least 200 feet tall or with a 200-foot drop. We're going to talk about the ride currently known as Ride of Steel at Six Flags Darien Lake. It opened in 1999 as Superman Ride of Steel. It is an Intamin Mega Coaster, or colloquially known as a Hyper Coaster. It stands 208 feet tall, has a 205-foot first drop at 68 miles an hour, 5,400 feet of track with a top speed of 73 miles an hour. And this is what everyone would call the premier ride at Six Flags Darien Lake. This is the reason a lot of coaster enthusiasts come here. It's one of the better pieces of the collection in this park. So, on this channel, we review coasters based on the four following criteria. Layout. Is it exciting? Is it boring? Is it average? Intensity. Is the ride intense, super intense, chill, mid, that kind of thing? Smoothness. Are you getting yourself shaken and rattled to bits? Is it glossy smooth? Somewhere in the middle. And rewritability. Is this a one and done ride for the credit? Or a go on every time you visit the park kind of ride? Or one of those rides you're going to go on multiple times while you visit the park, whether you're marathoning or lapping it? So, let's talk a little bit about the layout first of Ride of Steel. It is a very, very basic coaster. It is jokingly referred to as the straight track coaster. And if you ever went to RIP Six Flags America and rode the clone of this that was built the year after, you probably wondered, why is this ride like this? When you ride the one at Darien Lake, it makes sense. So the ride begins by taking you out of the station with a quick U-turn, and then you proceed up the 208-foot tall lift to that 205-foot first drop down. Once you hit the bottom of that, you are in a tight, maybe borderline 90-degree turn or first turn to the left, because if not, you're going straight into the main road that runs straight to I-90, and no one really wants to become, Frogger. After that, you hit the ride's signature element of straight track. You get that until you get to the first of the three. Well, it's the next airtime hill. It's more of a camelback. On this one, you don't really get a lot of airtime off of it. You get more of that sense of that speed when you come down that first drop and the whip into that turn. And a little bit of not really any pops of airtime anywhere in this coaster. I've ridden this coaster several times in various seats from the front to the back. This airtime hill really doesn't deliver a lot of anything on it besides, a great view of the entrance way to Six Flags Darien Lake. After that, you're going to more straight track before running into the ride's other signature element, one of the two helixes in this ride. You're going to go up a little bit before banking into the helix, as this one is a downward helix. This is a monster helix. And the reason, though, you're doing this helix is this is the way you're going to do the turnaround. You're flying through this. You get that feel of the rush of the speed. It's almost like driving a NASCAR around Daytona. Not that I've ever done it, but I would only assume it feels the same way. It's good. It's fun. It's different. It's, this is where you're going to notice the ride does have a little bit of a rattle here and there. Not terrible where it's going to ruin the ride, but enough that you're going to feel it, and you're going to get a nice head chopper as you're exiting the helix, because you're going to go underneath the track that you started on before hitting yet again more. Yep, we're going to do a drum roll. Straight track. But the reasoning on this straight track is because there is two giant lakes in this section in front of the park. It's called Darien Lake. So it does make sense why there is straight track here, because you could do only so much at that point. But, you get a nice sensation of speed on this ride continually, and then you're going to get into the next airtime hill. And this is the first one where you're going to start feeling a good pop of airtime on it. You're going to flow out of the seat. This one's definitely more flowy floater airtime than anything. It's not strong or by any means, but it is, a substantial little bit. Then you're going to go straight into more straight track before going into the next helix, which is now an upwards helix. And again, it's about the same size as the other one. You're going to get more of those same forces. You get a little bit of a head chopper going into it, but on the one before this, you get the better of the two, in my opinion. And then this is where Ride of Steel finally adds a little bit more bite to then just feeling like you're driving a NASCAR at 70 something miles an hour. It doesn't go directly into a normal, like 90-degree run into the station. Kind of goes into like a giant S-ish kind of turn. Not that it's really an S turn, before doing a little bit of banking before going into a twisted airtime hill that absolutely does deliver some good, strong ejector airtime. And then it's going to bottom out on that to get into the final two bunny ejector airtime hills, which does contain their on-ride camera, before hitting the super, super short brake run. Now, those last three airtime hills are where you're going to get the most pop out of this, where you feel like you're going to throw yourself out of the seat. And unfortunately, that did happen at one point in time, and we will get to that in a minute. Um, but it is where you're going to get that big pop of air that, a hypercoaster is what you're looking for, much like on Millennium Force, that kind of small one at the very end before the last overbank. And then it's going to slam into those brake run. I remember the first time I rode this, I'm pretty sure it was before they put the magnetic brakes in, and whoo, it was like riding a Schwarzkopf Wildcat hitting the brakes on that. Now with the magnetic brakes, it's a little bit more graceful. It is still strong because this brake run should have been a lot longer, but it does the trick. It's good. It's fun. And then you're back in the station. And that is a ride on Ride of Steel at Six Flags Darien Lake. Now, like I said, we're going to review this thing on the 4 categories. So we're going to talk about layout. I can see where a lot of people are going to say this is a boring layout because it is nothing but straight track, airtime hills, helixes. Given the fact that I'm going to give myself a little bit of bias here, maybe. I don't want to. Was my home park for a good chunk of my life. But when you look at this one compared to where it is location wise and the reasoning, it makes sense why it's the way it is. When they clone this, I can see why you're like, why on earth did they clone it? This makes no sense. This doesn't. The landscaping of Darien Lake did dictate the design. So with that, I'm going to give it an average kind of layout. It For what it was, given the fact it was Intamin's first mega coaster, where it was in the park, you could have maybe you could have done more, maybe you could not. Hard to say. And let's talk about smoothness. Ride of Steel isn't a rough ride. It does have some spots where it does feel like, it's a little bouncy, a little rattly. Nothing crazy. I would say it's kind of like a B&M rattle, but not like the ones that are going to ruin the ride. It does give the ride a bit of character, and it's also almost a 30-year-old ride at this point, so it's going to not be glossy smooth. It's nothing that's going to hinder your experience because you are with a lap bar without shin guards. Now, that being said, let's talk about rewritability. Is this a ride you're going to want to ride multiple times? For me, back in the day, yes, I would absolutely marathon this. I can see why you would want to marathon it. Even when I go nowadays, there's usually a good chance I'm going to ride it at least 2, maybe 3 times. I'm not going, to just continually go back and forth anymore. It is definitely one of those rides you're going to want to ride again, especially because on some Intamin coasters of that time period, you do have those bulky restraints that are like the U-bricks, where you've got shin guards or the U-bricks. This is just that simple T-bar, much like you'll find on Millennium Force or the original Top Thrill Dragster or even Accelerator at Knott's. So it does provide a fairly comfortable ride. Intensity wise, I totally skipped on that one. Intensity, for me, this isn't super intense. I can see where if you don't like getting thrown out of your seat or you're intimidated by something of this magnitude, or if it's a hot day, those helixes could very well give you a little bit of, could make you feel a certain way. I can see where I could certainly argue with you and see where you could see it as intense. To me, this isn't a super intense ride. Much like a B&M one, it's more of a people pleaser kind of ride. It does everything you kind of want on it. And it is honestly a fun ride. I do like the fact that in the last couple of years they have tried to improve one of the ride's biggest downfalls, and I'm not going to use it against it in this case, and that was the single train ops. I know they have been working on getting a second train to make it a little bit more reliable, or not reliable, but continue with the throughput. But honestly, minus that, which can be hit or miss, this is a great ride. It is definitely something you should seek out if you are looking to try to, boost your coaster collection, or if you're just, you're in the Buffalo, New York area, or even Southern Ontario. I mean, obviously, if you're going to make the call between Canada's Wonderland and Darien Lake, I'm not going to argue with you about Canada's Wonderland. But if you're in the area, certainly go check this ride out. Go check out Darien Lake. It is a charming park that definitely is underutilized, underappreciated, and with the right TLC could be a lot better. One thing I do wish for Superman is, could we decide if we're going to keep this thing as just Ride of Steel, Or are we going to call it back Superman if we stay Six Flags? And more importantly, can we get this thing a fresh coat of paint? It is getting to the point where it does need some more paint and TLC like that. But other than that, this ride is in great shape. Um, and I do highly recommend it. So that's going to really do it for this coaster review of Ride of Steel at Six Flags Darien Lake. Let us know how you thought about this ride, what your opinions are of it, and you know anything else you want to talk about with this ride and or even Darien Lake in general. And as always, thank you all for watching. God bless, and we'll see you in the parks.